Tim has spent 40 years in the building construction business. He's an avid fisherman and hunter. In fact, he goes hunting and fishing more than I'm jealous. He's been to Alaska, I think, twice this year, 3 times. 3 times. He's going, leaving soon to go to Mexico, and he'll be fishing down there, but also doing some ministry when he's down in Mexico. So I'd like to welcome Tim. Let's give him a huge Chippewa Valley welcome.
As Terry said, I've been in the construction business for 40 plus years. It's one of the things that the good Lord has put me in a place where I think I'm gifted anyway. It's been very good. And as he said, I do like outdoors. Probably a lot of you guys are like me, don't sit still very well. So for me, a few minutes of sitting inside is like forever. So I like things to do. So I'm still messing with my business and fishing and hunting when that allows. For many years, I worked a lot of long hours and didn't get to play any, but once our kids were growing out of the house, obviously that afforded me a little more time to go do that. So just the last few years, I have been doing a bit of fishing and hunting, and have had some terrific opportunities to fish and hunt. As Terry said, I got to go to Alaska caribou hunting this year. I was in Montana elk hunting this year. I was up in Alberta whitetail hunting. So I've been blessed with those opportunities. And fishing, I've been doing that for years. I really like to fish. I mean, I can remember one time going to North Dakota with some friends, and myself and a friend of mine were out in the boat one day, and in 5 hours we caught 156 walleyes. I have no idea how many northern, but probably just about as many northern in 5 hours. Last July when I was up in Alaska, the salmon runs so strong up in Alaska that it got boring. We literally got bored fishing, so we had to make up games like who could catch 10 salmon the fastest, or one guy would get some little docks we fish on. One guy would start on a dock, and the next guy had to wait till he caught one and then try to catch him before he got down and back. And it was just, at one point we blindfolded my nephew, made him sit on a chair, and he had to catch a salmon blindfolded sitting on a chair. And in about 5 minutes, that's how much they were running. In 5 minutes, he caught a salmon. And I've been to Mexico, like Terry said, a few times. And we don't do ministry, but we also go down there to fish. And man, I've caught lots of mahi. I've caught big sailfish. Caught a blue marlin. Had a lot of opportunities to do some fun things, and it's only because of God's doing. But I didn't grow up doing any of that stuff. You know, I grew up east of here on a little farm. There were let me back up. So I grew up on this farm, and I grew up in a family of 16. I got 12 brothers and 3 sisters. So we didn't have much of anything. We never went fishing or anything. We never had any fishing poles around home, none of that kind of stuff. The only gun we had was a single-shot .22, and that was used for butchering. So that's all we ever had around there as far as those kind of things. But when my dad was 45 in 1969, he passed away. There were still I'm going to lose her here a few times, guys. There were still 13 of us at home at the time. So we never went anywhere. We never did much. We never did any money. All we did was farm. So, in our household, when you got to be old enough, when I turned 18, it was time to get out the door. Enough. Feed yourself. Right? Enough mouths to feed. So, turned 18. Several months after getting out of high school, and went up to Minneapolis, St. Paul with a couple of friends of mine. Got a job up there, and I don't know, probably the same today, but back then it's like if you're a farm kid from Wisconsin, you could own the place in a few hours. I mean, we applied at 9 o'clock in the morning. They told us, give us an address, you need to go there. We didn't even, dumb farm kids had no idea what we were even doing. We got to the next place. They did a little light physical on us. We got done doing the physical, and we got ready to head out the door and said, hold on, don't take off yet. So we thought maybe it was something to do with the physical, right? So we waited there just a few minutes. He could, guy and did the physical, came back out, and he said, well, you got till 3 o'clock. Your shift starts at 3. So that day, we went to work. And so I worked up in the cities for about a year. I got to tell you, for a guy that likes outdoors, I hated every day of it. I did not like any part of that. And so the guys I went up there with, we kind of hung out, and we worked that 3 to 11 shift. And so after our 11 o'clock shift, we usually went and drank for a bit, horsed around, and whatever. But after about 11 months of it, I had enough of it. I got fired from my job, and decided I'm not living up here. I had a couple of decent cars back then. They both got stolen. Made me mad. I'm getting out of here. So I came back here, and because I got fired, I was able to draw unemployment. So why not? I think I'll draw unemployment and play for a little bit. So I signed up for unemployment, drew unemployment, and that playing led to lots of drinking, and partying, and eventually to doing drugs and hanging out with people I shouldn't have been hanging out with. Really, but I should have known better where we were raised, but whatever. That's what life deals sometimes, right? So I'm hanging out with guys I shouldn't hang out with. We start doing some drugs and getting involved in that. Stuff we shouldn't have been involved in, obviously. But after doing drugs and partying, and I mean, back then the drug of choice was what they called speed back then. It was a little tiny pill, about the size of an aspirin, weight like an aspirin. You take a couple of them, and you sleep for a while. So I mean, this time we'd go 2 or 3 days of just drinking and doing speed and partying, and that's what our life was back then. It wasn't going anywhere, but that's what we did. And eventually, of course, these kind of things catch up with you a little bit, right? So couldn't take care of our habit anymore, so we had to do something. So we decided we'll go to Minneapolis, we'll get them ourselves, we'll get the speed ourselves, we'll bring it back here and sell what we can sell and party with the rest of it. And so we did that for a while. Up to the cities, we used to stay up there and party in the evening and head back in the morning with whatever and come back here and sell it and whatever. And we were back here. And it's been going on for a little bit, and then one time on the way back from Minneapolis coming down 94, I noticed a car tailing us. I didn't realize it was tailing us at first, but I had a car behind us. And I noticed as we come up to a ramp, like he'd speed around us quick, go up the ramp. I look in the mirror, he's coming back down the ramp. Like, what's that about? Next exit, same thing. Goes peeling around us, goes up the ramp. We go by, I look in the mirror, he's coming back down the ramp. Like, it's not good. They're on to us, tailing us. We're way smarter than they are, right? Let's get out of here. So, a couple days later, didn't tell anybody. We just hopped in the car with the clothes we had on our back and headed to Florida. Went down to Florida, and believe it or not, we actually got a job. Worked for a little bit on a big dairy down there. Of course, again, Wisconsin farm kid, hire you. And I went to work on a dairy farm down there. and worked there for a few weeks, and decided one weekend we're going to go over to the beach and we're going to party. So we went, headed over to the beach and partied for a couple of days, and blew all the money we had, of course. On the way back, we stopped at a convenience store to get some gas, and decided to rob the convenience store with the gun we had stolen. So, roll the place up, take everything they got, head down the road, but we didn't get very far. Not being all that smart and not knowing where we were. It was basically one road that went east and west in that part of Florida with no place to get off. Imagine what happened. We were getting away. The cops were waiting at the other end for us when we got there. So we're busted. Haul us into jail, charge us with armed robbery. In Florida, I'm sure it's still that way, in Florida, armed robbery is punishable up to life in prison. So I'm like, whew, we're in trouble here. But you got to deal with what you got to deal with, right? So I made the bed, I got to lay in it. So get sentenced to prison. I get moved a couple times, get to a prison, and when you're in prison, there's not a lot of things to do. I mean, I don't know, I think this day and age they do more programs and maybe whatever. Back then, there was nothing. You're on your own. So I spent a lot of time lifting weights and just doing things like that to occupy my time, stay busy. So anyway, one day when we were all lifting weights, this little hillbilly guy came up to me and he started to lift some weights with me, and he says, "You ought to come to church with me sometime." I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? So I'm serious, you should come to church with me. Like, why would I do that? He's like, well, maybe for no other reason than they got this good-looking young gal that comes with them and sings. You might want to see her. I'm like, I haven't seen girls in months. Like, come in. All right, I'll go with you. So I went with him that Sunday. I went the next Sunday. She was good looking. I better go back again. But through that's when I first started to hear about God's mercy, God's forgiveness, His grace, God's love for us. I didn't know any of that before. No idea what they were talking about. But that's when I first heard about it. Well, shortly after that, a couple months after that, they transferred me to another work release place where they kind of help you get a job and try and get you back into society and back, hopefully, doing better. But I wasn't ready for anything with God yet. So they sent me to this work release place thing, and I get a job, and first job I get, they hooked me up at a place washing dishes, which I hated, but got me out for a few hours anyway. Then they found another job. They said, hey, there's this guy with his orange groves looking for somebody to help manage these orange groves. And like, so you're a farm kid, you probably know machinery. I'm like, yeah, I'd be interested in that. So I get a job at this place that maintains orange groves. So orange groves are like anything else in farming, right? They got to be mowed. You got to mow around the trees. They got to be fertilized. Oranges get sprayed a couple times a year, believe it or not, with different fungicides and whatever. And so I got a job working at that orange grove maintenance place, and I worked there for a while, and then they decided I was rehabilitated. They were going to let me out, so they let me out, and I kept that job and worked there for a while, and had another young fellow working with me, and I said to him, man, we get into some really remote places here, you know that? Like tending these orange groves. I mean, way back in the Everglades, and there's nobody there. I mean, there's these irrigation canals, big little alligators and stuff in there, but there's water there. I'm like, you know something? We could grow some awesome marijuana back here. So that's what we did. Started growing marijuana. I tell you, the ceiling, you couldn't see that you hammed that far in there. I mean, you could really grow some marijuana. So did that for a while and started sell it. And one day, the parole officer decided probably should stop and check on me. Not right. Not good, because I had a whole bunch of bags of it right there in my house. And came. So, busted. Revoked my parole. Back to prison I go. So this time I'm in for another year or so. And then when my time expired, when I lapsed all the time, they gave me a bus ticket back to Eau Claire and $100. And they told me to get out of Florida and stay out. So I'm kicked out of Florida, and I'm being a little bullheaded German that I am. I got on that bus in Titusville. I thought, I'd be damned if you're telling me where I'm living. When I get to Jacksonville, which is the next bus stop, I'm getting off this thing, I'm going to do what I want to do. But God had other plans, obviously. Because when we got to Jacksonville, for some reason, I got off the bus, I horsed around a little bit, but when they called for the bus to leave to go to Atlanta, I got back on the bus. Probably the smartest thing I've done. So, that's like I don't remember, 2.5 day bus trip from Titusville, Florida to Eau Claire. You stop at every little town, and you had to wait for the next bus, and long and boring. But it gave me some time to stop and reflect on what I've been doing and where I'm headed with what I'm doing. And I think by the time I got to Chicago, I'd figured out if I don't change something, I'll be spending my rest of my life in and out of prison. And I didn't want that. So, I get back here to Eau Claire, I hitchhike back up the home farm in Stanley, and one of my brothers was working at a construction outfit, and he said, "Hey, you want to get a job? I can help you get a job." It's like, "Yeah, sure. Probably should find a job right away, help get my life back together." So, got a job and went to work in the construction business, which I'm still doing. And I don't know. Shortly after that, I met this pretty gal here in Eau Claire, and her name's Ruth. And started dating, and a year and a half later, we got married, and we're living in Eau Claire. And when we were married there, after, I don't know, maybe a couple of years, something like that, her mom started to invite us. Excuse me, her mom started inviting us to trying to get us to come to church. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good. I don't need to. I'm good now. I can figure it out." But she was persistent, and I didn't know until a lot of years later that even though She didn't like me because of my background, my history, which I guess I can understand. She still went to a Bible study every week. And the people she went to the Bible study with prayed for me every single week. So, I don't know, eventually she must have worn me down. Part of it was she'd say, why don't you come to church with us? And then come on over to the house. And we lived 2 blocks from the church. Come on over to the house. We'll have chicken dinner and we'll watch the Packers or something. You know, like, all right, I like to eat. Yeah, sure. Okay. So we started going to church with them on occasion. And again, that's when I started hearing about God's love and His grace and His mercy again. And kind of started to hook them together a bit, like, you know, maybe there's something to this. Maybe that's what I need in my life, to change things around. Maybe I need God here. So then one Sunday when we were there, they had a guest speaker there. His name was Getz. And he gave a message, and at the end of his message he asked if anybody wanted to accept Christ as their Savior. And I don't know, I guess it had been on my mind a bit about for a while. Like I said, I raised my hand, yeah, I do. And so that Sunday, I went forward and I asked Jesus to be my Lord and Savior of my life. Obviously, the best thing I've ever done, without a doubt. Nothing close. Since then, I've been greatly blessed. I have a great wife who I'd be in trouble without her, but she takes care of me. Takes care of everything for me. She's terrific. We have 3 boys and 3 terrific daughter-in-laws that all get along, and 4 grandchildren. So we're really blessed there. At least in my opinion, I think I'm way blessed there. I'd like to see a few more grandchildren, but it is what it is, I guess, there. We've been blessed with 3 businesses, 3 separate businesses that have all been successful. And God has blessed us in everything we've done there. I mean, everything, and then some. I've had the privilege of going on a number of mission trips. I've been to Nicaragua, I don't even know, Todd maybe knows, 5 or 6 times, building churches and schools in Nicaragua. Went to Mexico, worked on some churches in Mexico. Some of the coolest things, I think, were, for me, I went to Africa 4 times, and 4 different countries in Africa, and worked on Bible colleges when we were there, so trying to help the schools to train pastors. Instead of just building churches, they need pastors. So we worked on Bible colleges to help them to train the natives to be their own pastors in Africa. I don't know. Probably everybody should check that out sometime if maybe some of you people have been around third world countries. But boy, I'm telling you, on your worst day, you're better off than most of them people are on their very best day in their life. I mean, they are unreal. So much to be thankful for in this country, I can tell you that, after seeing the way people live in the rest of the world. Sometimes I reflect back on my past. Mainly because there are some things that remind me of things that in the past. Things like They took my rights away. So again, things you might take for granted, like voting. Sometimes it's time to vote. It's a reminder for me. I can't vote. If you're a convicted felon, you have the right to vote. So things like that remind me. Another thing that reminds me once in a while of spending time in prison is in prison you don't have a name, you have a number. I've always been and always will be 044-857. That's burned in here, burned in my burning. Unfortunately, not much else is, but that is. I haven't used that number since 1977, not because I don't want to forget it. I think the good Lord does that to me as a reminder of what He saved me from. I mean, I can get pretty high on my own horse if I wanted to, and I do too often the way it is. But I really think that He reminds me of those things. To remind me where I came from, where I could still be at if it wasn't for His grace. And I tell you, I'm far from having it all together. I have plenty of shortcomings that everybody that knows me that certainly attest to. I do have is a God that has and continues to forgive me. He's been so gracious to me. When I don't deserve it. And this might look like I'm a real techie, but I'm not. But I did learn how to put a Bible app on my phone. So, I'm going to read, thinking about forgiveness, I'm going to read Romans chapter 4, verses 7 and 8. It goes like this. Blessed are those whose transgressions are forgiven and sins are covered. Blessed is the one whose sin the Lord will never count against them. Never. Even though I did a lot of stupid things, He never found against me. Once forgiven, as far as the east from the west is straight. Think about grace. Ephesians 1:7 says, in Him we have redemption through His blood, forgiveness of sins in accordance with the riches of God's grace. The forgiveness of sins isn't about me, not about you. It's about God's grace. We don't work for it. We don't earn it in any way. We don't do anything for anybody else. We don't do anything for us together. It's God's grace. I'm going to figure out how to use this thing. You guys have this Bible apps, these stupid things that keeps bringing up. like ads or something. They won't let me go out of it. Come on. Finally. One more passage I want to read. Psalms 13, verses 5 and 6. So it says, "But I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation." Verse 6, "I will sing praises unto the Lord, for he has been good to me." So in verse 5, the psalmist is saying, I trust in your unfailing love, which he has for every one of us, right? He doesn't forget us. He doesn't ignore us when we're having a bad day. He never fails us. And then it says, my heart rejoices in your salvation. I don't know about you, but that's everything for me. That he cares enough for each one of us, cares enough for me. That he saved me. What did he save me from? The stupidity, the sin, the stupid things I do. Because without that, I'm going to hell. My heart rejoices in your salvation. Verse 6 says, I will sing praises unto the Lord, for he has been good to me. I don't know about you. For me, I just mentioned some of those things that he's always been good to me. But that list goes on. And the more I sit and think about it, as soon as you do the same thing, long before I was saved, I can look back and see how he had his hand and his guidance on me way back then. He's been good to me because if it wasn't for him, there's probably a pretty good chance I'd been out of prison the rest of my life. So as you go today, think about those things, how the Lord bless you. And sing his praises today. For that, I want to say adios. I'm going fishing in a couple days.